coming to you from my studio in South Austin. It's approximately 2:30 on August the 9th, a Sunday afternoon, and this is my latest offering to you as my viewer and audience. I've entitled this one The Architecture of Human Behavior. And I've always found human behavior to be something quite extraordinary. We see examples of it all the time, especially now that social media is bombarding the internet airwaves, so to speak. Well, I'm not going to bore you with any more of an introduction. Let's just get right to the subject. And here we go. I'm going to allow my narrator on my word program on my computer to read it for you. He's a much better reader, and his voice sounds much better than his old, tired voice of mine.
The Architecture of Human Behavior. James H. Exum / Yogi Sakshi. Austin, Texas. Copyrighted August 9th, 2026. All rights reserved. I work without effort. Sakshi. When the intellect awakens and the self is remembered, the journey is no longer wandering, but pilgrimage. A discourse on pattern, perception, and the inner design of action. Seekers of wisdom and students of the human condition, we stand before a veil. Beneath the visible actions there is an invisible world. Beneath the spoken word, an altar of intention. Beneath the habit, a covenant the soul has made with memory. What is the hidden structure by which a human life becomes a pattern? Behavior appears as choice, reaction, preference, mistake. Yet beneath the motion is architecture, perception, memory, emotion, habit, environment, meaning, and the ancient hunger of consciousness seeking form. Human behavior is not an accident scattered across time. It is a sanctuary built stone by stone from attention, inheritance, longing, and awakening. The literature of environmental psychology, cognitive science, and neuroarchitecture increasingly recognizes that human action is shaped not only by internal motives, but also by the spatial, social, and symbolic environments through which the body moves. Contemporary work on neuroarchitecture, for example, emphasizes embodied exploration and the reciprocal relation between built environments and cognitive experience. Similarly, recent behavioral approaches to urban planning describe physical environments as active participants in psychological and behavioral response. These findings invite a larger meditation. The human being is not a machine that merely occupies a world, but a sensitive organism continually patterned by the worlds it inhabits. Human infirmity in moderating and checking the emotions I name bondage, writes Spinoza. For, when a man is a prey to his emotions, he is not his own master. Baruch Spinoza, Ethics, Part 4, Preface. The foundational chamber, perception. The first chamber in the architecture of behavior is perception. Before one acts, one must behold. Before one chooses, one must construe. Before one becomes, one must see through some lens of consciousness. The world does not enter the soul as a neutral inventory of facts. It arrives clothed in karma, the law of consequence, memory, language, hunger, fear, desire, and expectation. Thus, two people may stand before the same circumstance and inhabit different worlds. One sees a threat, another sees an initiation. One sees an obstacle, another sees a disguised teacher. Behavior begins where perception gives form to the formless and names the mystery before it. To study behavior without studying perception is to count shadows while forgetting the lamp. A person does not merely respond to events. A person answers the meaning that has risen within the event. The mind is an interpreter before it is an actor, a priest before it is a builder, a witness before it becomes a judge. Therefore, the architect of transformation must ask, what meanings have been enthroned? What assumptions bear the weight of the house? What chambers have been sealed by fear? And what windows have been opened by trust? Jung gives us the inward corollary. When an inner situation is not made conscious, it happens outside as fate. See G. Jung, Ion, Researches into the Phenomenology of the Self, Collected Works, Volume 9, Part 2. The pillars, habit, emotion, and memory. Upon this perceptual foundation rise three great pillars: habit, emotion, and memory. Habit is the body's scripture, written by repetition into nerve and muscle. Emotion is the weather of the inner temple, darkening the sky or opening it to illumination. Memory is the hidden archive, not merely of what occurred, but of what the organism vowed thereafter to protect, pursue, or avoid. These pillars do not stand apart. Habit summons memory. Memory kindles emotion. Emotion strengthens habit until the pattern speaks with the authority of fate. The person who repeats a behavior may say, I am choosing this again. But the deeper oracle whispers, this pattern has chosen you through rehearsal. The task of self-mastery is therefore not condemnation, but revelation. Why was this structure built? What danger did it once guard against? What belonging did it once purchase? What sorrow did it once conceal behind its wall? A maxim often attributed to Plutarch states, character is simply habit long continued. Traditional attribution to Plutarch, attribution uncertain. Aristotle speaks in the same discipline of formation. We become just by doing just acts, temperate by doing temperate acts, brave by doing brave acts. Aristotle, Nicomachean Ethics, Book 2, Translation W.D. Ross. The social blueprint. No human architecture is privately designed. We inherit blueprints before we know we are builders. Families draw rooms of permission and prohibition. Communities teach the grammar of dignity and shame. Institutions arrange reward, punishment, visibility, and silence. Culture whispers to the body where it may stand, how loudly it may speak, what it may desire, and what it must call normal. Thus, a behavior is often a personal event with communal authorship, a private gesture carrying the handwriting of many generations. This is why compassion must accompany analysis. If a person's action appears irrational, perhaps we have not yet studied the conditions under which that action once made sense. The scholar asks what variables shape behavior. The contemplative asks what suffering, longing, or confusion breeds beneath it. Together, they reveal that human conduct is not merely moral performance. It is adaptation, signaling, memory, and aspiration unfolding in a field of influence. Spinoza again instructs us that an emotion, which is a passion, ceases to be a passion as soon as we form a clear and distinct idea thereof. Baruch Spinoza, Ethics, Part 5, Proposition 3, Trans. R. H. M. Elwes. The Sacred Mechanics of Attention. Attention is the chief architect and the inward priest. What we attend to, we consecrate. What we rehearse, we invite into incarnation. What we neglect, even if noble, remains an unborn possibility at the threshold. In this sense, attention is not passive observation. It is formative devotion. To give attention is to pour light into a chamber of the psyche. A grievance attended daily becomes a shrine of injury. A possibility attended patiently becomes a path through the wilderness. A truth attended faithfully becomes a lamp that refuses to go out. The architecture of behavior must therefore be understood as both scientific and sacred. Scientific because it may be studied through cognition, emotion, embodiment, and environment. Sacred because it concerns the shaping of a life. In every moment, the nervous system is learning what to expect, the heart is learning what to trust, and the body is learning where to place its next step. This is the oracle written in flesh. What we repeatedly attend to becomes the world we are prepared to inhabit. Jung offers the necessary descent. One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. Commonly attributed to C.G. Jung, often associated with his writings on shadow and consciousness. The Vedic interior, chariot, witness, and mind. The Vedic tradition, the knowledge of the Vedas, gives this architecture one of its most luminous images, the human being as a chariot moving through the worlds. The Kaha Upanishad, a scripture of self-mastery, teaches, "Know thou the soul is riding in a chariot. The body is the chariot. Know thou the intellect as the chariot driver, and the mind as the reins. The senses are the horses, the objects of sense are the roads." Here is the teaching. When discernment sleeps, the horses scatter. When the reins are slack, desire becomes direction. When the intellect awakens and the self is remembered, the journey is no longer wandering, but pilgrimage. The mind is restless, turbulent, strong, and obstinate. O Krishna, I deem it as difficult to control as the wind. Bhagavad Gita, a sacred dialogue, 6.34. Yet Patanjali, yoga's classical systematizer, does not leave the seeker without method. The Yoga Sutras, brief teachings on liberation, define yoga as disciplined union through Siddhavti Nirodha, the stilling of mental fluctuations. This is not a violence against thought, but the sanctification of interior movement. The waves of the mental lake grow quiet not by hatred of the mind, but by disciplined attention, ethical living, breath, concentration, meditation, and the emergence of witnessing awareness. In that stillness, the seeker does not manufacture truth. The seeker becomes transparent enough for truth to shine through. Here the themes of James Exum / Sakshi's own teachings enter naturally into the discourse. In the public video work associated with James Exum / Sakshi, recurring concerns include the here and now as a yogic discipline, the witness consciousness of the self, the power of will, the tension between dharma, right action, and deceit, the role of satya, truthfulness, and the gentle transfiguration that occurs when the personality begins to bow before the vision of the Atman, the inner self. These themes extend the architecture of behavior beyond psychology into sadhana, spiritual practice, by which the human instrument is tuned until the finite personality becomes a flute for the breath of the soul.
What was just read mentioned myself and my yogic name, James Exum Sakshi. And even though I wrote this, it was included because I thought it necessary. But please do not take it as vanity or a third person viewpoint. I was merely being accurate and merely using a literary license. And so let's continue now.
In such a view, willpower is not the violence of the ego, but the disciplined alignment of attention with the soul's highest aim. Presence is not passivity. It is the refusal to be exiled into yesterday's ashes or tomorrow's mirage. Dharma is not abstraction. It is right relationship between thought and action, power and truth, self and society, Atman and world. When the inner chariot is ordered, action ceases to be compulsion and becomes offering. The human being becomes free not by fleeing the world, but by learning who, within the chariot, is truly meant to hold the reins. Reconstruction, the ethics of redesign. If behavior is architectural, then transformation is not merely a wish, it is a sacred renovation. One cannot command a pattern to disappear by force of ego alone. One must redesign the altar on which attention is offered. This includes the arrangement of space, the rhythm of the day, the language of the inner voice, the companions one permits near the threshold, and the rituals by which one returns to center. Behavioral change is most durable when it alters not only intention, but atmosphere, not only decision, but devotion, not only the visible habit, but the invisible covenant that feeds it. Yet hear the ethical caution. To understand behavior as design is not to reduce persons to mechanisms. The human being is never merely programmable matter. There is mystery in agency, depth in conscience, and emergence in love. The aim of behavioral architecture is not domination, but liberation. To make conscious the structures by which unconscious life repeats itself, to bring the hidden blueprint into the light, and to place into the person's own hands a wiser instrument for shaping the house. And in the spirit of the ancient ethical schools, we may remember Aristotle's practical admonition. For the things we have to learn before we can do them, we learn by doing them. Aristotle, Nicomachean Ethics, Book 2, Translation W.D. Ross. Let us conclude, then, with this proposition. Behavior is the visible geometry of invisible commitments. It is the shape taken by attention, inheritance, memory, emotion, environment, and soul hunger. If we understand a person, we must study not only what they do, but the architecture that makes the doing feel necessary. If we would transform a life, we must become patient builders and humble mystics, removing what confines, reinforcing what ennobles, cleansing the threshold, and opening within the human dwelling a wider passage for truth, responsibility, grace, and the quiet radiance of the self. May we therefore build carefully, build first within perception, for there the world is named. Build next within practice, for there the name becomes flesh. Build also within community, for there the private soul learns the pattern of the shared world. Every act is a doorway. Every habit is a corridor. Every life is a sanctuary under construction. The question before us is not merely what we have become, but what altar we serve, what light we shelter, and what we are willing, with discipline, mercy, and awakened seeing, to design next.
It continues with the bibliography and source notes. Um, Aristotle in his Book of Ethics, Book 2, translator, name, and so forth. Young again, Spinoza, of course, Plutarch, Bhagavad Gita, Sathya Upanishad, Patanjali, and myself are quoted within this text. I felt it unnecessary to go through all of that on this video because it just takes up time, and most people probably would not be that interested in hearing about it, especially at the end of the video. The other option is, because I'm doing all of these discourses, I'm accumulating them as I create them into one file, and that Word file will eventually be revised and organized and become either a very long pamphlet or maybe a mid-range in length book. I have written books before on yoga, and this is my next one in progress. So there it is, the architecture of human behavior. There's a few golden nuggets in there, I think, if you listen for them, and maybe roll the tape back and listen again, and if you have the ability to turn on that little device that reads along with my words, that's very helpful, I think. And again, I hope you gain something from my writings. That I'm not just creating them to add to the volume of works and the noise, endless noise that's on the internet. Please share this one with others, friends, family, and so forth. And if you get a chance, go back and look at my different works. I think I've created over 100 videos now, and I intend to keep going. I try to do 1 or 2 a day now that I'm back in the saddle, so to speak. And I try to choose subjects that might be of general interest to particular members of the public. This is not for everyone, you know that. My writings and my videos are an acquired taste, and with the central theme of yoga philosophy being the common thread. So I'm gonna go now. Thank you again for dropping by. As I always say, be good to yourself, be good to others, and be good to strangers. And if the world is weighing heavily on your shoulders, keep this in mind, my friends. As in the past, storms come and storms go, and this too shall pass. Thank you, and good evening to you.